The Catholic world was stunned today as Pope Leo XIV made an official statement about Saint Bernadette Soubirous. Imagine a lifeless body in a glass case, looking untouched by time or decay. No chemicals, no mummification, just still there, as fresh as a living thing. What if I told you that this isn't science fiction, that it's real? That's exactly what happened with Saint Bernadette. And what you're about to hear may change the way you think about miracles forever and what you understand about life and death.
Bernadette Soubirous was born on January 7, 1844. She had a series of visions of the Virgin Mary in the Massabielle grotto that led to the founding of the Shrine of Lourdes. She entered a religious life and became a nun in the Sisters of Charity of Nevers in 1866. She worked in a convent hospital even though she suffered illness, including asthma and tuberculosis.
Bernadette Soubirous was just 14 years old when everything began. She lived in a tiny town in southern France called Lourdes. Her family was very poor. So poor, in fact, that they had to live in an old jail cell with only one room. Bernadette was sick most of the time. She had asthma, which made it hard for her to breathe. She also had survived cholera, a deadly illness at the time. She couldn't read or write and had little education. On February 11th, 1858, while out gathering firewood with her sister and a friend, Bernadette saw something strange. In a small rocky area called a grotto, she saw a woman dressed in white and blue, glowing with light. This was not just a quick vision. The woman came back again and again, 18 times in total over the next few months.
Bernadette Soubirous 18 times in a grotto in Lourdes, France. In one of those apparitions, Our Lady instructed Bernadette to drink from the stream and to wash herself there. Bernadette had no idea what Our Lady was talking about, but Our Lady pointed to the exact spot. Bernadette began to claw at the ground and cover herself with mud and wipe the mud and the dirt across her face. Obviously, people began to ridicule her and say, how can this girl have a vision of the Virgin Mary? She's obviously out of her mind. Well, weren't they surprised when water came forth from that very spot that Bernadette was digging? Weren't they surprised that within just a few days, people were claiming
People from all over the town came to watch. Some believed her. Many others laughed at her. Some said she was crazy. Even government officials got involved. They questioned her again and again, trying to make her change her story. But Bernadette stood firm. No matter what anyone said or did, she never took back what she saw. She believed it was real. And that's where the story begins. One day, during one of the visions, the glowing lady told Bernadette to dig in the dirt near the grotto. It didn't make sense, but Bernadette listened. She got on her knees and started digging with her hands while a crowd watched. At first, people thought she had lost her mind. She was covered in mud, and there was nothing there. But then something amazing happened.
This is the message of Our Lady to Saint Bernadette. I do not promise to make you happy in this life, but in the next. Mother Mary asked for penance and prayer for the conversion of sinners. The next day, she told her to dig the ground, and she found a stream of water which gave healings to the sick.
Water began to bubble up from the ground. It was a spring, one that had never been there before. Soon, people started using the water, and that's when things got even more unbelievable. A blind man said he could see again. A woman who couldn't walk suddenly stood up and walked. People with wounds and illnesses felt completely healed after touching or drinking the water. Many said it wasn't just the water, it was the peace they felt when they came to the grotto. Of course, some people were still skeptical. They said it was all in people's heads. But the number of healings kept growing, and many of them were impossible to explain. And the most amazing part? That spring is still flowing today. Thousands of people visit it every year. Some come for healing. Others come for hope.
I'm standing here in front of the Basilica in Lourdes, where Our Lady appeared to St. Bernadette at the grotto. One of the things that struck me just reading about St. Bernadette is she wrote in one of her notebooks that she was addressing, and basically it was a prayer to the Lord saying, "Oh Jesus, I no longer feel my sufferings when I think of yours, when I think of you and the cross. And so we see, of course, the cross right here in front of the basilica. It's a reminder that suffering accompanies us throughout life, but when we keep our eyes fixed on the Lord and on Jesus crucified, as St. Paul and all the saints had a great devotion to our Lord's passion, it gives us the courage and the strength to continue on through this life. We know as well that our Lady, of course, told St. Bernadette, right, that I don't promise you happiness in this life, but in the next. So we have the cross, and we unite our sufferings with the Lord as we continue on this pilgrimage toward heaven. So we ask St. Bernadette and Our Lady's intercession that we might carry the cross with great love.
Even while she was still alive, people believed that Bernadette was connected to something holy. She never called herself special, but strange and beautiful things happened around her. One story tells of a baby who was dying from tuberculosis. The doctors had given up, but someone placed a piece of cloth near the child, something Bernadette had made with her own hands. After that, the baby's condition suddenly changed. The child was completely healed.
You can drink this very water today. If you go to Lourdes, you can bathe yourself with this very water. In later apparitions, Our Lady proclaimed that she is the Immaculate Conception. She requested that a church be built. She requested processions to come forth. And to this very day, there are magnificent structures that testify to this request. To this very day, there are processions in Lourdes. Every single day, there's a Eucharistic procession where our Lord grants many graces to those who are in attendance. Every single evening, there's a rosary procession in Rosary Square. Every day, pilgrims can take part in the sacrament of confession. They can take part in the beautiful Stations of the Cross. In Lourdes, every day is like a great Marian feast day.
In another case, a little girl who couldn't walk was brought to the convent where Bernadette was living. Bernadette wasn't allowed to heal people, and the nuns told her not to get involved. But she quietly went to the child, gently picked her up, and placed her on the ground. Right then, the little girl began to walk. Everyone around her was shocked. But one of the most amazing moments was the candle miracle. During an apparition, Bernadette was holding a lit candle. Suddenly, the flames spread and completely covered her hand. People were screaming, thinking she would be burned. But she stood still for 15 whole minutes with fire on her skin. When it was over, her hand was perfectly fine, not even a red mark. These miracles amazed even those who didn't believe.
Located at the back of the chapel is the museum, which shows the different things that belong to Saint Bernadette in the many stages in her life. This traditional-style guest house is a renovated convent where we stayed overnight and experienced how it is living where Saint Bernadette lived long ago.
Saint Bernadette died on April 16, 1879, at just 35 years old. She had joined a convent and spent her final years in quiet prayer and suffering. She had tuberculosis and was in great pain, but she offered all of it up to God. After her death, she was buried in the convent's small graveyard. Most people thought that was the end of her story, but something incredible was about to happen. In 1909, 30 years after her death, church leaders decided to exhume her body. This was part of the process to consider her for sainthood. Normally, after so many years, only bones and dust remain. But when the grave was opened, the doctors were stunned.
And the convent where Saint Bernadette became a nun after she had the visions of Our Lady in Lourdes, which is right down in southern France, in the foothills of the Pyrenees. It was truly a wonderful experience to see the incorrupt body of Bernadette, which was first exhumed 30 years after her death, and although the crucifix in her hands and her rosary had both oxidized, her body was incorrupt, still soft and supple.
Bernadette's body looked like she had just died a few days ago. Her skin was soft and smooth. Her muscles were still flexible. Her fingernails were perfectly intact. There was no bad smell. It was as if time had simply ignored her. The church still wanted to be sure. So they opened the grave again in 1919, this time with new doctors. They found the same thing. Her heart, liver, and organs were still whole. No signs of decay. Again in 1925, a final check was done. This time, doctors placed a thin layer of wax on her face and hands to protect her from air exposure. Her body was placed in a glass coffin inside the chapel in Nevers, France, where it still rests today. Visitors say that when they see her body, they feel something peaceful and holy. Even scientists have admitted they can't explain it. The church didn't rush to call anything a miracle. They studied everything carefully.
There are many lessons and insights that can be gained from a close examination of the happenings at Lourdes. We can't go into everything, but I would like to focus on 5 lessons that I consider spiritually significant. The first lesson is on the absolute providence of God. I could go into a whole video on the life of Saint Bernadette because she had a very holy life. She didn't become a saint just because Our Lady appeared to her. But if you were to take a look at her life, the first thing that would stand out to you, the first thing that stood out to me, is that she had a relatively miserable life. She lived in extreme poverty. She was a part of one of the poorest families in all of Lourdes. They lived in an abandoned prison. It wasn't even good enough for the prisoners, yet it was good enough for Bernadette Soubirous and her.
Over the years, many people claimed they were healed by the water from the Lourdes spring, but only the most extreme and unexplainable cases were even considered. The Catholic Church created a strict system to study each case. Doctors with no connection to religion were brought in. They checked medical records, test results, and everything else. To this day, over 70 miracles have been officially recognized by the Church. These aren't just small improvements. These are cancer patients completely healed, paralyzed people walking, and blind people seeing with no medical reason why it happened. And that's only the official list. There are thousands of unofficial testimonies from people all over the world who believe they were touched or healed through the water and the prayers of Saint Bernadette.
And make this grand entrance that would affect Catholicism for all of history. Now Lourdes is one of the most popular, the most visited pilgrimage sites in all of the Catholic Church. And the beautiful thing is, Our Lady knew this from the beginning. She knew in that her appearance to Bernadette in this location, that this site was going to be a pilgrimage site, that so many people from all over the world would be traveling there, that it would be a place for conversion, that it would be a place for healing. Our Lady knew this. So she used Bernadette's illness, she used Bernadette's poverty, she used what appeared to be trivial circumstances to get Bernadette to that location.
Every year, more than 6 million people travel to Lourdes. Some come looking for physical healing. Others come for peace, comfort, or to simply feel closer to God. Many say that just being there, standing near the spring, or visiting Bernadette's body gives them a sense of hope they can't explain. In 2024, medical experts re-examined the old reports. They once again confirmed there is still no scientific reason why her body remains untouched. And still, the spring flows. Still, the miracles continue. In April 2025, Pope Leo XIV made a big announcement that caught the world's attention. He spoke about Saint Bernadette's body, which has remained untouched by decay for more than 140 years. He confirmed that science still has no answer for it. No chemicals were used. No tricks. Just a body, soft and whole, as if she had died last week. The Pope said clearly, "This is not superstition. This is happening now." To him, her incorrupt body was more than a mystery. It was a sign that what she said and saw was true, that God really chose her, and that miracles still happen, even in our modern world where people doubt more than believe. And maybe that's the most beautiful part of the story.
That even when we're suffering, even when things don't look like God has His hand in our life, that all of these circumstances that we are a part of, they're all a part of God's divine providence. Don't ever forget, all things work for the good of those who love the Lord. The second lesson is on the importance of the Most Holy Rosary. With the water, with the miracles, with the apparitions, visions, and messages, it's very easy to lose sight of the importance that the Holy Rosary played, not only in the life of Saint Bernadette, but also in the apparitions themselves. I mentioned earlier that Bernadette wasn't well categorized.
Bernadette wasn't rich. She wasn't famous. She was poor, sick, and couldn't even read. But God still chose her. Her life shows us that anyone, no matter how small, can be used for something big. Even today, millions visit Lourdes, hoping for healing, peace, or simply to feel close to something holy. Some are healed, some aren't, but many say their hearts are changed forever. So what about you? Does this story make you wonder? Does it open your heart just a little more? If it touched you, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs hope. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe for more. Because maybe miracles are closer than we think.